Welcome back to another episode of Pick Their Scullz with me, your host, Liz James. Today, I'm super excited to have Nathaniel S. Hardy Project on the show with me. Nathaniel, thanks for joining me.
Hi, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's the Nathaniel Hardy Project.
The Nathaniel Hardy Project, that's awesome. And you have, you've been with Nas for quite a while, right?
Yes, pretty much about the time that Ed started it.
That's right. And you're based up in Baltimore?
I'm actually from Baltimore, Maryland, but right now I just moved to Canada in Bridgetown, Nova Scotia in December.
Oh, wow.
My wife
Congratulations.
is originally from Canada.
That's awesome. So, first of all, let's talk a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in music and what are you up to right now?
Well, I've been doing music ever since I was about 14 years old. I started in a marching band playing the trombone. I used to play the bass cello, but the cello was taller than I was. So I gave that up because hauling it home was just too much for me. So after a couple of months, I gave that up and switched over to trombone.
How funny is that? I have the same story. I started cello when I was 7, and it was so big for me. I was just a tiny little dart as well. So the cello was bigger than me. I couldn't get my knees around it.
Right. So I had an older brother who was probably like 16 months older than me. He was playing trombone. And back in the 70s, you had all these funk bands that played brass instruments like Kool and the Gang,
nice,
LTD, and a lot of other Parliament, that they had these brass instruments in it. So he would play stuff on the radio all the time. And I'm like, man, that is so cool. And I remember the song Jungle Boogie, where they had the brass breakdown. He was always playing that. And so I was like, I want to learn how to. He said, then you need to stop playing that. You need to stop playing that cello that you can't hardly bring home and do this. And I'm like, okay. So both of us was in the marching band and we used to always practice at home and listening to the radio. So fast forward, I had a friend who also was in the marching band. He played the baritone. So we were all brass instrument players. And he had a cousin named Mark Brown, who was this type of flamboyant guy. Yeah. He was an artist and repertoire guy, A&R guy up in New York for Atlantic Records. Cool. And so we went up to his apartment. He had a nice apartment in Manhattan and a nice flat in Manhattan. And he had a grand piano. And so I started sitting down and I started just playing some stuff on this. And he says, man, you play pretty good. He said, you ever think about auditioning for a band? Like, nah, man, I did a couple of bands and we didn't do too well. We had a record deal and it didn't go too well. So I'm done with that. And he says, no, you ought to apply for this band called Chic. And I said, Chic? I said, man, they already have keyboardists. They got about 3 of them. He says, yeah, they have Robert Sabino, this Puerto Rican guy. They have Raymond Jones, this black guy, and they have Andrew Schwartz, this Jewish guy. So what do they need me for? He says, because even though they're in a band, they don't make up the core band. It's only 5 members, and then they're the backup. And I said, okay. And he says, I said, but I'm okay. And he says, I'm going to put your name down for it. So he put my name down for an audition that they had at the Apollo Theater. So we went up to the Bronx and we went to these mad hip hop parties that they had. Yeah. And there was a lot of upcoming artists who hadn't even been famous yet. And so what happened, we went up there and we came back around 2. And he says, hey, man, I got you on the list. He says, you're the last one, like 93. They thought it was going to be more than that, a little more than that. He said, but you're the last guy, so you play and you go away. I'm like, well, I'm the last guy. I'm going to watch everybody play. So he says, do you know what you're going to play? I said, I got an idea, but I'll know when I get there after listening to everybody else. So I'll know what I want to play. And he said, but I'm going to tell you, they got everybody. And he got all his, Nile Rogers has all his friends that he grew up with. There's going to be a lot of famous people there. Luther Vandross was one of them.
Wow.
He was one of them because he was on the Young Americans with David Bowie.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, wow. And so he says, oh, yeah, it's going to be a lot of them there. And so what happened, he had like Angie Bofield, who was big back in the day. He had Stephanie Mills. He had all these people that he knew that was like background, that was doing background for anybody that was up on the stage. And then he had this orchestra. So, oh man, I never worked with an orchestra. I'd like to do that. Yeah. So I say, oh, you will. So I listened to all these people. And there was one guy who was really good. But the minute he started singing, the late, great Bernard Edwards got up and said, enough. I want that damn 3 minutes back. And I started laughing. And Nile Rogers turned around and he said, hey, Joker, you think it's funny? You won't think it's funny when we bounce your black ass out of here. And he said, Mark, control your company. Ooh. And I said, okay. And I was thinking something. I said, nah, shut up. All right, no problem, man, no problem. And he said, calm down, Nathaniel. I said, well, it was funny. So then what happened was, because I had never heard anybody say they want their minutes back. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was, I guess that was a New York thing. And so what happened was people were playing and stuff like that. And I said, wow, nobody never did something I'm about to do. He said, what you going to do? I said, nah, I'll tell you. You'll see it when I get up there. Because people are sitting in front of me who have to go up there. I was going to tell you what I'm going to do. And then they got earshot and they do what I do. So when it finally came time for me, he says, it looks like you're the last one, Mr. Joker. And he says, how old are you? I said, I'm 15 years old. Oh, wow. We got a young one in here. He said, I think you're probably the youngest one. Mark, where'd you get this young guy from? He said, oh, he's my cousin's friend. And he's good, man. He said, you good? I said, oh, well, I'm okay. He said, okay, Mr. Okay, Mr. Clown, get up there. And he said, if you sound like shit, we're going to let you know. And I said, yeah, I heard. I seen what you guys do. Because they were arrogant. And they were like at the top of their game.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. So I get up on stage and I start tinkering around with this keyboard that he had. Then what are you doing? I just want to see if it's nice, if it's tuned. He started laughing. And then I looked at this baby grand that he had. I said, ooh, there's a white one at that. And I played. I said, is it tuned? And I ding, 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 ding. Oh yeah, it's tuned. He said, hold on, dude. You coming up here trying to clown on us? He says, let me tell you something. We're Chic. And he says, one thing about us, if something don't work, we get rid of it. Uh-huh. He says, every time you come to a Chic concert, we sound like our records. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. And I said, well, how do you do that? He said, we use the same engineers. We use the same musicians, vocalists, and we use the same instruments. Now, instruments come and go, they get upgraded, but if they don't sound like our core band, it gets donated to schools.
Wow.
And he said, Bernard and I, he says, Nile and I, we both went to music schools, public music schools. And I said, okay. He said, so we'll donate to any school that needs some instruments to keep people off the street. Well, are you in the street? So no, I'm in the house playing instruments and writing music and doing electronics and stuff like that. He's like, oh, okay. He said, so what's your selection going to be? I said, I got a good one. It's called Nothing from Nothing. And he goes, wow, really? And I said, I'm going to play that song, and by Billy Preston. And he said, whoa, that's a composition. You sure you can handle that? I can handle it. I listened to it on the radio. I played it before. He said, okay, whenever you're ready. And I said, all right. I said, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they looked at each other like, whoa. Okay, because nobody done that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the band starts coming in, the drums start coming in, and then as I was playing, I can hear I'm singing nothing from nothing leaves nothing, and I hear the guy and I'm like, oh shoot, this sounds good. And so I started playing. So Bernard gets up and he leans forward, and he gets up and he's shaking his head, and Nile looks up at him, and he was like, and he looks down at Nile like, shit, right? Like this guy. So I go through the breakdown, and then go down, 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 and you can hear the brass going, and I was like, oh shit, I got him. And so I was just playing it, and I could look back, and I was staring at my friend and his cousin, because that was my focus. And they were putting their hands up like, yeah, you got this shit. And so I was playing, and then after it was finished, they both stood up, and they were like, oh my God. They hadn't done that with anybody else. They like, oh my God, this was great. And then Bernard said, you lied to us. I said, what do you mean? He said, you said that you didn't know how to play. I said, no. I said, I'm all right. I'm okay. I said, I never say I'm the best player, because you had some players out there, some pianists who are way better than me. He said, really, if you had to choose somebody other than yourself, who would it be? I said, the guy that you said you want your 3 minutes back, he was great. He just should have not sung. He shouldn't have sang anything. I said, the lady that was doing the concerto, she says, yeah, she was long, but she was good. You can mold her to the way that you want. I said, pretty much these jazz and these classical, you can mold them to any way you want. He said, that's right. He said, that's what we did with Tony Thompson, our drummer. He was a rock drummer from Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. And he said, we had to change him up because he was just going all over the place. But you make sense, Mr. Hardy. He said, they were clapping. They said, damn, you did good. And then Mark said, so we'll hear. He said, we'll let you know, Mark. We'll let you, Mark. He said, who else did you think was good? And I said, that white boy that was playing the all those keyboards and then ran over to the piano when he was playing. I said, he was playing something. He was playing Dreamweaver. He started off playing the piano, and then he ran over to the keyboard. And I said, that was so cool. I like that. He said, yeah, he was good, right? He said he did his rendition of Gary Wright's Dreamweaver. He said, well, at least you're honest. And I said, and then I know I did good. I said, man, I never worked with an orchestra. And I turned around to Miss Stephanie Mills and Mr. Luther Vandross, who everybody called Ronnie. And I said, thank you. I said, man, I'm meeting Stephanie Mills, Angie Bofield, and Luther Vandross. And Luther started laughing. He said, no problem, man. He says, Luther said, man, you were good. And you 15? He said, damn, you were good, man. He said, now, this guy was good. Right, Stephanie like, yeah. And then Angie Bofield, I just loved her. She's so fine and so pretty, and she can sing. And she said, yes. And he's a little cute one, too. I was like, oh, shit. A black man was blushing. I was blushing like I don't know what. And then...
So you started out, obviously, back in, was that in the 70s with the Chic band?
That was like in 79. 79, Chic was just coming off of their last great album. Because after that, they never had, after the Disco Sucks thing that happened in September, they never had another hit after that. But they were producing other people like Blondie, Diana Ross, and stuff like that, where they were making a name for themselves. And then later on, they went to David Bowie and stuff like that.
That was when they were with Atlantic, right?
Right. They had 2 more records after Atlantic, and then Atlantic released them from their contract. Because as long as you're making money for the record company, they want you. But as soon as you start losing money, they don't want you anymore. So I got to do a lot of sessions. And I had went in the Navy also, and Nile remembered me, and he had sent me something to my grandmother's house. And she contacted me and said, hey, this guy named Nile Rogers called and he wants to know, do you want to do some work? And I said, well, I'm in the Navy. He said, well, you need to give him a call and at least tell him what's going on. So I did that. And he said, do you get vacation? I mean, like, do you guys get to go on vacation? He says, because I got something coming up with this girl named Madonna, and I'm about to make her an international sensation. I said, well, I've heard of her. And he says, yeah, but she's not really famous. She had some minor, like Physical Attraction, Starlight, Starbright, but there was nothing to make you turn your head. I'm going to make her a super pop star, international. And he brought in this guy. I can't remember the name of this guy, but I remember his song. It was like, do you want to get funky with me? Do you want to get funky with me? Do you want to get funky? It was a big song in the 70s. Well, he was one of the writers on that song, on that album. And he bought this guy in and he just made hits. And so when we were in the studio, I said I was able to get it. And I had to run it through the chain of command on my ship. The first two people approved it. Then it went, nope, nope, nope. And so I had to walk it up to the executive officer, my division officer. He said, I'll let you do it. I'll let you miss ship movement if you get me Nile Rogers autograph. And he said, I'm going to bring in all my albums. He brought in all these Chic albums. And he walked it over to the executive officer. The executive officer said, do we have demanding? He says, if he was to die today, we have somebody here tomorrow. So we good. So he said, okay, go to the captain. The captain asked the same thing. We're good, sir. Okay, you can go, Mr. Hardy. If you're doing this, you need to go and do what you have to do. He said, I don't usually let people leave to do things that they want, but these guys spoke highly of you. I said, okay. He signed it, approved it. I said, can I make copies of this? So yeah, go make copies. So I made copies. And what I did, I gave it to all those a-holes who disapproved it. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. And I went down to start packing my clothes. They letting you leave on a deployment. I'm out of here. So I flew back to New York and now said, you stay at my place. So I met my friend up there and we stayed at his place. And then we go to the recording and they already had the songwriters and they're going over the songs. Madonna must have gave him a track of how she wanted the songs to sing. And he listened to it. He's like, oh, no, you sound like everybody else. Let my band, my people come in here and do it. And we're going to show you how it's done. And all he did was just change the arrangements on it. And he said, Nathaniel, you're going to be on this song and this song. The one was Material World. And the other one, Material Girl. And the other one was Love Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Oh, wow.
And now the sneak, what he would do is he'd have us practicing. And we think we just practicing and he recorded. And he go, that's it. We're like, that's it.
One and done.
Yeah, you nailed it. You only get to record one time with Nile because he's like, I'm trying to save everybody money. And so when he did Love Don't Live Here Anymore, Madonna was crying in the booth. If you ever listen to that song, she's crying.
Wow. And
after we listened to it, I said, are you going to record that? He said, yeah, man, you can't make this shit up. I'm like, for real? You going to record that? And she didn't like that. He said, nope, I'm recording. Because a producer, you have to be like a psychiatrist with some of these artists because some of them got family issues. And her family issue was her father. He ruled with an iron fist.
Yeah.
And just sitting there and talking to her, like we'd be sitting around and she would talk to me. She'd say, so you're 20 years old? Yep. You got any children? Nope. You don't have any children that you know of? Nope. I don't have any children. I'm not married. I don't have no babies anywhere. I'm good. And she was like, wow, that's unique. I'm like, what? Unique for a black man? No, I got friends like that who don't have children. She's like, oh, okay. I said, I'm not there. You just say that. And because she was like, one of those artists that she just knew she was better than everybody. Yeah. But she got told at this recording because Nile had a friend that was older than him that he grew up with. And Nile always had people that he grew up with. If you didn't do music, he didn't mess with you.
Yeah.
Okay. He was big into drugs, but he's big into music. So what happened is the guy had to go to the bathroom. And he says, I'm going to the bathroom. She said, where you going at? He said, I'm going to the bathroom. She said, time is money and the money is mine. He said, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'm going to the bathroom and ain't nobody going to never tell me I can't go to relieve myself in the bathroom. So when Nile came back, Nile was known for leaving the studio, but he would come back and he'd go, mix this in, take this out, punch this in, punch this out, compress this, take this out, and whatever needs to be done. So he said, now I need to speak to you. So he and Nile went out in the office, out in the hallway, and you can see Nile looking back. And then Nile said, okay, I want a meeting with all musicians, all vocalists, all audio engineers. And he says, and publicists and blah, blah, blah. He said, Madonna, you owe this man an apology. She said, for what? He said, let me tell you something. I got it in my contract. If the artist and I don't work out, I can immediately walk away from it and keep the money and still get 2% of your gross earnings. I said, wow. You got it like that? He said, I got it like that. Wow. And he said, so what you're going to do, you're going to apologize to this guy. She says, well, what did I do? He said, see now, that's what I'm talking about. He said, you know what you did. And then she thought about it. She said, oh, I'm sorry, such and such and such and such. I didn't mean it. He said, the reason why I'm having you to apologize in front of everybody, because you said what you said in front of everybody, which is right. Make this stuff right. So he said, the guy said, well, I got something to say now. You know, I'm older than you now, and I've known you coming up and growing up and everything. He said, but let me tell you something, Madonna. I got a daughter, I got children your age and older. And let me tell you something. My daughter talked to me like that one day, and I put her ass through the freaking wall. He said, that's my daughter. Now, I ain't going to take that from someone else's daughter. Now, if you got problems with your family and everything, you deal with that with them. But I'm going to tell you, you're not going to talk to me ever like that. Don't you ever talk to me like that again. Do you understand? She went, yes, sir. I mean, he broke her down.
Yeah.
So what happened, I had been doing this stuff ever since, you know, doing music and things like that. And then I got into pitching music because a lot of times when the record company released these songs, they got to have somebody to pitch this music to the radio stations. And sometimes the radio stations will go, yeah, because their last album was slamming. But that don't mean this album's going to be slamming. But then you have some programs. You have some station managers, music directors, and program managers who can just be real, totally. They can be some hard people to get through. They're like, no, I don't like it. It's not going to get played here.
You're doing a lot of that with the new artist spotlight at the moment, right?
Yes.
You're pitching to radios.
Yes. Pitching, right? Pitching it's not hard. It's just difficult and it's time consuming. Yeah. Because sometimes you'll get that song where they'll love it and they'll go, yeah. Or sometimes the music director will say, I like this, but what are we going to do with this? And then she'll turn to the DJ, and the DJ from then, he can make it or break it. Yeah. Because I had one of these happen to me before COVID happened, December 2019. Well, I pitched a song that a friend of mine did, and he had me a feature artist on it, and it was called Mind Going Crazy. The lady loved it, but then she turned to the DJ and said, where would this fit? And he said, really? Nowhere. He said, I don't like it. Yeah. I don't like how it sounds. I don't like this. And I just sit there and I listen to him. And I said, wow, considering a guy who's never written anything. He said, what do you mean? Yeah. I said, I've been checking up on you. You're just the DJ. You can get fired any day. Yeah. And I said, listen, man, you don't play it, you don't play it. So they had to take a vote. And they would go, no. Well, I'm not too sure. No. And then the last guy asked me, is this something you just decided to do? I said, dude, I've been doing this for way before you've been in radio. Yeah. You can Google me. And so they didn't play it. So I ran into some guys whose song they played. And we're on there. And I said, let me hear the song because you guys going to get played, right? They were slapping hands and everything. And they said, we made a bet. We could come up with the stupidest song and we get played on this radio. And the song was stupid. It had a nice beat, but they was going, they would call it mumble rap.
So what kind of tips would you give to artists looking to pitch their songs out to radios or producers?
Make sure that they have a clean version because they're going to ask you, is it clean? Make sure they have an a cappella and make sure they have an instrumental version in WAV and MP3 files because the instrumental version will be used as a music bed. That's when they're doing like announcement for their commercials and they'll play your song in the background as a music bed. Make sure it's clean. I mean, a lot of people want to put profane language, but I always look at it like there's children listening and I never want to put something out there and have a child singing profanity. Make sure it's clean. Make sure you have a EPK because they want to know if this is like a little hobby thing for you or if this is something that you put in your heart and soul in. So they want to know if they're going to invest their time in you because radio, they'll throw you away just like a record company. If you're not doing anything or if you're not doing anything where they see you or whatever, that's it. A lot of them go by trends, but a lot of them don't. So you don't know which radio station might ask you for Facebook.
So definitely having up-to-date socials, profiles complete on streaming platforms.
Yeah, right. And make sure your music is something upbeat. If you got Metallica, okay, submit to stations that deal with Metallica. You submit to the format that music is, that genre that it is. Because if you send it to an R&B, they gonna be like, no, we don't want this.
No blind pitching.
Correct.
No blanket pitching.
Correct.
Excellent, Nathaniel. Let me just talk a little bit about the last thing that you've been doing recently. Your last track out was Yeah.
I did the original track somewhere around 2009, 2010. And what I did is I had my 4.5-year-old daughter on it.
Oh, that's cute.
Because the first one says, "Oh Yeah," featuring Faith Ruth Hardy Molina. She didn't want to do the "Oh Yeah," so my ex-wife said, "Hey, baby, you should do this." And once she heard it, she was like, I said, all you got to do is say, "Oh Yeah," and now compress it, and now put some echoes in it and whatever. So I got a lot of play in Atlanta, South Carolina, and Florida with that song. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to do an updated version, but I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to make it longer. Nile Rogers brought this up. Songs are getting shorter. People don't like that, really. I try to make my songs at least over 3 minutes. Some of them might be 7, some of them might be 8. But that's how I was taught because I worked with Chic and all their songs was always long because they always had some type of breakdown where the musicians were doing solos and stuff. So what happened was I did that and I figured I'd just make it longer and make it faster. And it was weird because I gave it to this one DJ just before I came up here to live here in Nova Scotia. And he's like, man, I like this. And he called me, he called me while he was doing the set. And he said, Nathaniel, this is your song. And he showed me this video. Everybody was on the floor. And he says, I'm mixing this song. I'm mixing this song. He says, I had this song running for 10 minutes. Like, wow. The song really isn't that long. It's about 3 minutes and something. Almost 4 minutes. And he goes, man, they dancing off of this song. Like, wow, dude. And people were coming up asking, what's the name of this song? And he's like, Nate, you got it on the platforms. Yeah. And I was sending them to like different platforms like Napster, which nobody hears about, but they are the one that pays you more. A lot of people don't know that. So I was sending them to like Napster and Tidal. And like, hey, go here to such and such like that. And they like, yeah, okay, all right. And you can get it on vinyl and such and stuff like this. And so that's how I was doing.
So thank you so much, Nathaniel, Nate, for coming on the show today. You've given us a wealth of information and knowledge there, which is going to be super useful for everyone in the NAS community and anyone else listening at home. That's the Nathaniel Hardy Project.
Correct.
And you can check out all his tracks on the New Artist Spotlight playlists, as well as on his own profiles and Spotify, everywhere else. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
No problem, Liz. You have a great
You're a
day.
legend. You too, man. Take care.